What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another game day update. I'm Kelcey, and I am joined by Chase Hughes. He is the Wizards reporter and NBA insider. I'm going with that for NBCS Washington. Chase, thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me back on. I think last time we talked was the draft, right?
It was a while ago. Are you happy with how the draft turned out?
It worked out well for the Wizards. They got Corey Kispert, best shooter in the draft, and now that Davis Bertans is hurt, it's kind of come in handy because he's all of a sudden got to play a lot more.
Hey, then it's good. I'm glad we talked about it before. I'm glad we're back here now. I'm not happy there's an injury, but we'll get to it. Let's talk about this. The Wizards and the Grizzlies will tip off tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's 7 p.m. If you're watching from Washington. The Wizards had quite a hot start there, a 5-1 start. They have lost their last two games. The Grizzlies have won their last two. It was kind of like this weird, not a back-to-back, but they had the Nuggets in town in Memphis twice in a row. That was weird. It's the only time it happens this season, actually. I don't know if you guys have any of those, but I was looking at the Wizards and the Grizzlies, and this might be one of the most evenly matched teams or games that I have seen so far this year. They're tied in points in the paint. They're tied in points per game. They're close in rebounding. What do you think sets these two teams apart tonight?
Well, I would say, first of all, that it's interesting the directions both franchises are headed. I was shocked to look at the Grizzlies stats today and realize that they're top 10 in offense and the worst defensive team in the league based on efficiency. Meanwhile, the Wizards are making defense their number one priority, and offensively, they've kind of struggled. They're not making threes. It's just if you looked at these teams 2-3 years ago, were very, very different. You mentioned points in the paint. I think that's going to be really important for the Wizards. They're giving up the third most points in the paint this season. And the Memphis Grizzlies have Ja Morant, who, despite being a point guard, leads all NBA players in points in the paint. Also, I think size is going to be interesting to watch because the Wizards, though they have size at a lot of different positions, like at point guard and at the three, they've got a lot of guys who are 6'10". They don't have anyone on their roster who is 6'10" or who is taller than 6'10". They're one of only 9 teams in the league that does not have a player who's 6'11" or taller. So against Steven Adams, that could be interesting.
Okay, so guarding Steven Adams, then it would be Montrezl Harrell, I'm assuming. You think that's a big mismatch?
I think Montrezl Harrell will see plenty of time. He's only 6'7". Daniel Gafford's 6'10", but he's not as built as Steven Adams. I think what the Wizards will try to do is get out and run. They'll try to space the floor. They'll try to do what the Warriors famously did a few years ago with their death lineup, which is go small and try to give the Grizzlies a lot of trouble how mobile they are. They've got big who can move, who can throw down lobs, who can defend multiple positions. They don't have a ton of size, but it actually hasn't hurt them too much, at least in the rebounding department. They've been a top 10 rebounding team. So I think the Wizards will make sure that they clean up the glass. But right now, Kyle Kuzma, we're not sure if he's going to play because he got hurt in the last game, and he's their best rebounder. He's averaging 11 rebounds a game. So that could be interesting. But I think what they'll try to do is make Steven Adams and the Grizzlies big men have to run the floor.
Very interesting. So if we look at guard play then really quickly, the Grizzlies, obviously, as you mentioned, led by Ja Morant. They've also got Desmond Bane, D'Anthony Melton, because Dylan Brooks is still out with a left hand fracture, or the recovery from that. And then on the Washington side, they've got, Bradley Beal, and he's been going off lately. I've seen his last couple games. He had like 20, 27, 24, 30. I made those numbers up, but they were high 20s. And then Spencer Dinwiddie, which I think is, he's kind of like an X factor in my mind. But guard wise, if you are coming from the Grizzlies watching the Wizards and you just haven't watched the Wizards game, who's the lethal guard that we should be watching out for?
Well, certainly Bradley Beal when it comes to scoring, and he's had a better year defensively than he's had in quite a while. Wes Unseld Jr., their new head coach, has really tried to unlock what he saw was a lot of potential in Bradley Beal defensively, but we're still kind of waiting for him to heat up offensively. His 3-point shots have not been falling like we're used to seeing. He hasn't been the 3-point shooter that he was earlier in his career, and they're trying to get him back to kind of the same types of shots he was taking early in his career when he was a 40% 3-point shooter, a lot of catch and shoot stuff. Him coming off screens, not really shooting off the dribble. The shots just haven't been falling yet. But I think Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are going to be a huge test for the Wizards point guard rotation because they have three point guards who can defend. Spencer Dinwiddie is a good defender. They've also got Howell Neto and Aaron Holiday. But this is obviously a pretty unique test. You got three guys who can defend, but now they've got to go up against truly one of the most dynamic point guards in the NBA.
It's interesting. I mean, I agree about Ja. It's interesting to hear you say Bradley Beal hasn't heated up when he's leading this team in points. Like, what is his potential then? Like, what do you expect from him?
Well, he's leading the team in points, but he's not scoring as much as he did the last 2 years when he led the Eastern Conference with about 30 points a game each year. But really, it's the percentages. I'm not surprised that he's scoring a little bit fewer points than he did the last few years because the Wizards have more scoring depth and they want to spread the ball around a lot more, and they've got more guys who can space the floor, make threes. And, we've seen a couple games this year where Bradley Beal didn't have to score a ton of points and they still won because they defended and other guys kind of picked up the slack. But he hasn't been efficient as we're used to seeing him. He's missed a lot of shots that we're used to him making. He's had some really rough shooting nights from 3-point range. He's become one of the best scorers in the NBA, not only because he can give you 30, 31 points a game, but he can do it efficiently. And that just hasn't happened yet. Wondering a little bit if maybe it's the change in the ball. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about going from Spalding to Wilson. And he talked going into the season about how it just feels different in his hand. And he's a shooter and he thinks the game through nuance and detail. And I think it's been an adjustment for him. Also, the free throws are down, of course. He wasn't a guy who really kind of did those non-basketball moves to get to the line. But shooting fewer free throws, I think, has affected his ability to get into a rhythm each night.
I mean, it says a lot about, I didn't even think about the basketball changing because our team is so young. They may not have been as comfortable with the ball they were playing with, but Bradley Beal's been around in the league for a long time. Like you would get used to the feeling of that ball. That's an interesting little thing to think about.
Well, he didn't say it directly. I think most players don't want to say it directly, but he said, scoring and shooting down across the league. And it kind of dawned on me afterwards what he meant. He wasn't trying to use it as an excuse, but I read between the lines there.
All right, Chase, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so excited to watch these two teams battle it out. I wish you good luck. You, as a reporter, I have to keep the luck for the Grizzlies as
Same
a team.
to you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much, Chase.
Absolutely. Anytime.